Welcome to the Deep Tech Marketing Interviews. My name's Ollie Huggins, and today we're speaking to somebody who was the Chief Data Officer at Tableau. They are currently the CEO of the association and Costrata AI. It is Wendy Turner-Williams.
So thank you so much, Wendy, for joining me today. I'm really keen to understand more about you and your background and all of your incredible work at the association. Just to kick things off, it'd be great if you could just unpack a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and what's led you to where you are now.
Yeah, so I am a long-term AI and data kind of expert. I would say that, I've been working in the industry for 20 plus years at some of the largest, most well-known kind of data and technology companies in the world. I have been in cloud and services since before there were cloud and services, because I started in telecom before the word cloud was even really a key word in regards to the market. So I've always really focused on in the service worlds of the cloud world and the big data world, and really at that touch point between software, data, and innovation for humans. As of the last 15, 16 years, I spent leading data at Microsoft. So led most of their strategy, architecture, you name it, data governance, built some of their tools that many of you use day to day today.
Any ones you can name? I mean, I use a lot of them, so.
Azure Data Factory came directly from our team. We built that originally for being an MSN. Their AI anomaly detection service came from my team in Azure. Lots of them. Anyway. And then the last 6 years I spent as the Chief Data and AI Officer for Salesforce and then Tableau.
Nice.
Yes.
Very impressive. Quite the rap sheet you have.
It's hard to it's both a curse and a positive in the market today to work at such the companies that I have, because sometimes people feel you're overqualified for certain roles if you're looking. At the same time, it's yes, I've had the luxury of having a lot of experiences that a lot of people have not had.
Yes, well, that's very true. It'd be good to unpack a little bit more. I mean, in what way is it kind of a curse? Because I kind of see what you're saying, but it'd be great to unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think this is going to trail into what we're talking about as far as what I'm starting on now. Frankly, when I was at Salesforce, I joined the company in 2017 as a opportunity hire, meaning the role was created for me to basically start their enterprise data programs, their data risk management programs, their platform programs, you name it. As they did the acquisition of Tableau, I was asked to move over to Tableau to basically, become their first Chief Data and AI Officer. That eventually led to me being exited as redundant, as they basically,
changed course.
With the M&A acquisition, as well as pretty much all of the other Tableau leadership, we were all exited, and that was right when the market was crashing. So that was in December of last year. So really, I think in probably January, February, the layoffs really started picking up. And so if you think about executive positions, executive positions are always kind of a very slow, right? Based on other positions, right? As well. It's harder to find executive positions.
Sure.
When you're talking about C-suite positions, then it's truly like a slow drip, even in a good economy, nonetheless, a bad economy. And what I had found is that as I started looking for new roles, people might approach me. In fact, a lot of people won't approach me because they think I won't join them. But also people that do approach me quickly say things like, you're so experienced, and, we're looking at this role from this one niche, because I'm used to running very large, multi-billion-dollar company, end-to-end data and AI, roles where I have the Center of Excellence for Analytics and for ML. I've got data literacy across the company. I've got all of our strategy. I have all of our platforms. And so I'm used to having like a very big
command desk. You've got all these things at your disposal, and then suddenly,
Yeah, and so now I think people are really quick to be like, well, you're overqualified for what we need and where we are in our maturity level, or you won't stay, and we know you won't stay based on your maturity. And if you think about someone who's come out of some of the biggest tech brands in the world, it's very hard for other companies to compare, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the big seven, and I've led data at two of the big seven.
Yeah.
So most so it's actually been somewhat of a curse in this market.
Yeah.
It's been very, very challenging, which is a shame, because it's not like I don't have tons of experience. I can run innovation circles around people who have less experience, because I have more knowledge and contacts, and have looked more holistically at problems. But it also it's kind of it's just a part of the market right now, sadly. So now I've been focused on other things as a result. So
talk about that transition then, because evidently you're in this kind of relatively cursed position where you've worked at 2 out of the 7 kind of big tech companies, and therefore you're too overqualified to be the right fit for any roles in the market at the moment. Where does that then lead you?
Yeah, so it led me down 2 paths, to be honest. Well, actually, I would say it led me down 3, if you can think of it that way.
Yeah.
So when this all happened last year, even before I realized the market was as bad as it was, which I didn't really realize it was until around January. Even though I think it had a slow ramp the year before of 2020 or 2022, right? I think that whole year had been really slow. But once the layoffs started really happening, especially when they started happening at Salesforce, because I had a lot of people that used to work for me, a lot of relationships, etc. The day that they announced the Salesforce 10%, I went into immediate action to start a tech layoff community. And it's funny because it shows how quickly I kind of moved, because I started the day going, I'm going to start this whole like Slack channel and community to help my previous employees, because I had been looking at the market for 2 or 3 months. I kind of knew where there was pockets of hiring, and I didn't want them to feel as alone as I had felt. Okay. During, I mean, layoffs are a huge hit to your emotion, your finance, your mental state, your families, you name it. So I didn't want them to feel the way that I had felt. So that was my first thought, like that morning. I think by around noon, literally, I was like, I'm starting a community for everybody, because for Salesforce as a whole, because I was like, I could help anybody across the board to provide support. I think within the first week or so, we literally had 2,000 or 3,000 members in our Slack community. By the second and third week, I opened it outside of Salesforce, because it's like a community is a community. Crowdsourcing jobs, crowdsourcing, emotional support, mental support, people helping you with resumes. I even had recruiters that were coming in directly to our channel to directly tap people. I'm like, that could go to anyone in tech, right? So eventually I grew that to about 8,000 people. And that just kind of solidified my thought process around what I'm really kind of doing as far as business now going forward. One was I have a professional services company called Costrada AI, where I'm focused on, there's a whole lot of me's, meaning people that have
you're not alone in terms of the situation, right?
No, there's a lot, especially right now in data. There is which is crazy with AI. It's completely backwards of what you would think. But there is a lot of very high-end, award-winning, proven data executives on the market who have been either pushed out of companies because they've cut their data teams as part of the roofs. I'm like, you'll regret that when you start moving down AI. That's how it works, people. But anyway, but a lot of us want to give back, right? Again, like I was saying with myself, I can journey to the cloud in my sleep. I still worked with customers, at Salesforce and Tableau who were struggling to journey to the cloud and basically drive, get the value out of that transformation and to bring their business teams. And I'm like, I would struggle the other way around in regards to why are we still on like servers? Like, what is this?
Yeah, I got tin hardware. If that machine goes down, everything goes down. Like, I've seen some horror shows before.
Exactly. So, my point is that there's a lot of experience that even like at major companies that are still like top 100, top 200 companies that they just don't have.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to provide fractional services to basically help companies mature, share knowledge, kind of a when you need it, buy it when you need it type of sizing, type of component that is more cost effective than others. And number one, I rolled to start that. But number two is really, I think, what you were most interested in talking about. I moved to create the association.ai. And what the association is kind of a labor of love to a degree. If you think about what chief data and AI officers do at companies, we're somewhat very unique, okay? And that's because we are servant leaders, okay? We own nothing, but we're responsible for empowering everything, meaning we don't own the business strategy. We don't even necessarily own the data. We don't own the tech that the infrastructure runs on. And our job is to almost be like glue between the business strategy and the infrastructure strategy as far as, moving and driving the company. To do that really, really effectively, what I have found is that you have to be able to influence and you have to be able to build communities.
Sure.
Okay. And I have done this in every single job I have ever had. In fact, it's basically what started my career in engineering was my ability to create relationships and that were really deep in nature to where people found value out of what I was bringing to the table. And it built community capabilities, right, underneath that. And so, if I think about what I did at Microsoft around, BI at Microsoft, which was our internal kind of community focused on leveraging like Power BI as a service and using information to drive our tools. Or if I think about what I was doing at Salesforce, when you are brought into a company to drive data maturity, whether it's strategy or data management maturity or quality or agility related to decision making, etc., you have to cross every single business unit within the company. Which means that you have to be able to extensiate their individual strategies and how you can impact, amplify impact from one strategy to the next. And the reality is that most companies don't understand how their business funnels work together and how their strategies interoperate and how the data between them flows. So like an example would be, if you are doing something like, again, I'm a software person.
Sure.
You have a product. Your product obviously has logs or, other types of things that you're collecting in regards to usage and features and support, etc. That same usage that's being used to make sure your product is available and healthy and has the right features is the same usage that marketing uses to make sure that a campaign worked as effectively as it should.
Sure.
Or that finance is using to actually, do their financial forecast or to pay sales or to partner ecosystems, etc. But when you get into the individual business strategies, the teams get really, really myopic into their specific systems and their specific process flows.
But that'd be my experience. Like in terms of the biggest problem that I see in terms of these functional departments is that they effectively become fiefdoms. Politics reigns where this person has to be told that you're doing this before you can do this, and therefore companies just stall in terms of growth because it becomes about people posturing
it becomes
power
about
dynamics.
Yeah, which is exactly kind of the point I'm getting to. Like data people who do really, really well learn to navigate the human, what do I want to say, the human politics. They learn to be able to build communities, because what you can do is there's ways to build and drive momentum even if it's just one particular team, to where they start to become almost like an evangelist for you. And it's like rolling a rock up a hill, right? You do some work to get it up the hill in regards to finding the right people who get it, and then they roll it down, right? I become like a master at that type of community building. And what I have found is that once you get it going, again, the community will build itself. So what I did with the association is I'm taking years and years of experience where, again, I've set at the cross points between software, data, AI, and regulations, because I've led GDPR readiness and privacy by design at several companies as well. And I'm looking at just the problem set of what it takes in regards to a quality, ethical AI. And I'm like, everyone's approaching it in the wrong way. It doesn't matter what the regulators put on paper, because if someone has to go look at paper, then they're not going to implement it appropriately. And anyone who's worked in software or data knows that GDPR or CCPA or any of these kind of regulations are written so high level that from company to company, they go and they interpret it totally different, which means, is the regulation worth anything if every company does interpret a different interpretation? So when I'm thinking about, again, this whole quality, ethical AI, I'm of the opinion that who really matters isn't the regulators, and frankly, isn't even the big tech companies, the top 7, because again, infrastructure is far too complicated. No one's on one infrastructure stack, and their tools are going to be specific for their infrastructure. Okay. Who matters are the AI implementers. And that's the people, regardless of your title, okay, who work in AI, data, ethics, privacy, security, and robotics. They own the data, they own the models, they own the quality, they own the usage, they own the access, they own the policy. That's the people who are literally implementing within the companies. And then other people, of course, are using it on top of the implementations. That's who matters. That's the front line for a quality, ethical AI. So what I wanted to do is, once those tech layoffs started happening, and once I was able to, get that Slack community up and going so quickly, and the amount of feedback that was coming in on a day-to-day basis on thank yous, on this has been just incredibly helpful. I've had spouses of people contact me saying, thank you so much for establishing this. Like, this has been a mental health,
I feel like a lifeline for people, surely.
It has been. That I decided that I wanted to create a dedicated community to those practitioners, that front line, and that I was going to build a global nonprofit that really focused on building that community, those networks, helping people get jobs and understanding where those jobs are, to brand themselves, to understand the education and certifications that you need to do your job more effectively. And even more importantly, that we as a community have a voice at the AI regulation table. And frankly, it is our responsibility to bring our voice to that table, because we're the implementers and we know where those gaps are. And there are ways for us to actually come up with standardized technical implementation requirements that are scalable, that allow us to meet regulations, not just today, but going forward in a much more effective, cost-effective, time-effective manner, versus everyone taking oh my God, there's this GDPR thing. Oh my God, there's this CCPA thing. Oh my God, there's now AI. It's like, if you put the right things in place from the beginning when it comes to like data management or data risk management, and then you layer AI on top, which is just a consumer of the data, and you do things like shift data left, you get business strategy and decision making, design, AI by design, security by the design, and that we needed to bridge the disciplines of these practitioners to make us more effectively work together, because we tend to silo back to those few things, right? And so I've been just heads down doing that, because I truly believe it's the most reasonable way to get quality and ethical AI is They're the controllers, right, at every single company. And frankly, I feel like people feel like they've been left out of the conversation, even though we know where the gaps are. All you have to do is look at things like the conversations on the Hill in the United States, right, around social media, to realize that regulators have zero idea about technology. Nonetheless, the complexity of data underneath that, right?
Yeah, I think what's interesting to me is that within the association, there's a kind of a meta thing going on, in so much as the advocacy of those individuals within the organization to lead the charge in regards to how they should be approaching those things.
Yeah.
That's quite a hard skill
It is.
to teach people. Evidently, you're a master coming to the table. So you've got two challenges with building the association. One, how do you get the community going? But then B, once the community's going, how do you then teach other people to be able to do the same thing? Yeah.
Yeah, and to me that it's about empowerment, right? So to me, this is a like a leadership skill set, or to me, it's not. To me, this isn't about a leadership skill set in regards to me. Like, this is how I live my life. Like, I am true to myself and my values. I am someone who believes in trust. I'm someone who believes in transparency, and I'm someone who believes in empowerment. And when you're working with others, especially like if you're managing teams or, et cetera, again, it's a working relationship. And the fiefdom concepts that happen within companies drive me nuts because, and again, I've gotten very good at navigating it, but what I do is I tend to break them down. Okay. And it's because I'm like, if you think about what you are when you work for a company, well, you're an employee. And you're all on that ship together, right? You're all one ship, And
people forget this, but yes, you're all on one ship.
we're all on this ride together. And if your strategy is my success, my strategy is your success. Okay. And while there may, of course, be personality aspects that lead to, promotions and other things in regards to growth, the reality is for the company, the good of the company, if people took it as a broader, like, I am here for the behoovement, the benefit of the company, and that's my job, is to move the company, then you can approach things in a different way, right? Sure. Find where you have, again, someone who gets it. Find a high impact sliver and come in and operate, and then use the messaging from your own team and others to drive, further improvement. But on the association, I'll give you some examples. I have a hodgepodge team. Okay. Everyone's doing sweat equity. So I've been bootstrapping. I now have sponsors starting to line up. So we finally have, money starting to kind of come in to build out what we're doing. Because number one, we have to build an actual product to enable the ecosystem that I want to provide to the actual practitioners. So there's like 3 marketplaces. I've talked about this whole, implementation standards aspect. We're standing up chapters all over. We're going to have a conference, right? But underneath that, there's an ecosystem and a tool that behaviors the connections of the people in that ecosystem. Okay. And so that requires some work. But underneath that, that's not me necessarily doing anything, right? Like, I'm doing thought leadership about what I think this can look like. And then I'm empowering others to go and take their passions in the space. And even though they've never felt they could be vocal, or they never, thought there was, never thought of spinning something like this up, or maybe they didn't know how their own unique skills could actually help, something like this grow. I'm really good at figuring out where people have what their strengths are, right? Like, I can see strengths, and I tend not to. Is
this part of how you turn them into evangelists, principally?
I am a strength finder. Okay. And even things that some people may not recognize as strengths, like I might recognize as a strength. And I like to amplify people's strengths in regards to turning a ship. And I may have, I amplify those strengths in regards to collections of people, right? Or multiple people doing multiple angles of turning at the same time, knowing that in total, that amplification is really going to shift this to, far to the right versus just one activity at a time, one focus at a time. So I'm someone who tends to do like multiple priorities, multiple approaches all at one time, be very, very iterative about it as well. So if something doesn't work, like shift like immediately into, I probably have 5 other ideas about how to get the same impact and pull those levers really, really quickly, and empowering and using people's skill sets that entire time. So we've got people now who are, helping to build product. I have a tech writer who's doing things like PR and marketing because she wants to learn new skill sets and she's really good at it. And if you think about what tech writing is, isn't it frankly marketing?
How does it work? So you got this picture of effectively you're assembling a puzzle of all of these different pieces that complement each other with all the different strings.
Yeah.
Do you approach that from a top-down perspective or a bottom-up perspective? So do you start with the people you have in your network and you think about their strengths and then you piece them together, or do you have a vision of who you need and then you go out and find those individuals?
I would say that I tend to actually go somewhere in between. I would say that I use both, right? So, and I'll plug and play as I need to. So I might have a vision. I may think that, here's a person and here's a skill set and here's what they can plug, and then find out that doesn't quite work the way that I thought, or maybe they don't have the time. Like in my example right now, again, everyone's doing sweat equity or whatever it is, but I tend to go in the middle. Okay. I have a vision and I know there's probably 20 ways to get to that vision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then how can I leverage, different people to do that? But more importantly, how can I not just leverage them, but how do I make them get really excited? And I think that's the difference too. When you're community building, you have to, again, it's a servant leader mindset, right? Like, how do you bring benefit to them, right? Like, how do I help them actually realize that they have that skill set? Or how do I help them brand in a way that they never thought of themselves, as a branded person? Or maybe they have deep expertise, but maybe they are like a really shy person or not comfortable in certain. How do you stretch them just enough to get them kind of, comfortable in those types of situations in order to not just move what you're wanting to from a strategy, but to help them. And what I find is that when you focus on that human aspect, right, which is the core of building communities, right? I mean, everything we're talking about is servant leadership, bringing value, recognizing strengths, amplifying, impact. That's all community building, right? And the people are a component of that. And once you understand how to leverage that, then it's fairly simple to do. But I know a lot of people struggle, but it's fairly simple.
A lot of people struggle, but part of me reflects on the things you've been talking about, and I think about how I think in some situations people see individuals as the means to an end, rather than thinking about what the value is to them and why they would want to participate in a community. So I've been tasked with going away and building a community around this new tech startup that I've just joined. I'm thinking about how can I be successful? How can I demonstrate value to my organization? Build a community of 1,000 developers. In reality, when you think that way, you're probably not going to get anywhere because you're not thinking about the people that are going to be the members of that community and what value they're looking for.
Well, I mean, and no, you're spot on, because I mean, again, the point of a community is that there's got to be something that's bringing the community together, and usually that's some type of value point, right? You're bringing them some type of value in some way or another. If you have your own explicit like objective and it's about you being able to say, I built this community, blah, 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 and not focused on what's the point of the community and how do you enable, value to the community members. And then how do you keep growing and amplifying that? Then, yeah, it's not going to be successful. It's very much it's very much a servant leader approach. There's no point in building a community if you're not going to bring value, right?
That makes like a lot of sense at a high level. I'd be keen to understand a bit more specifically, like what does that look like in practice? So let's say cold start problem. you're starting a community from scratch. You have some individuals who you want to approach. How do you approach those kind of conversations? How do you start understanding what people's strengths are, what it is that they're trying to achieve?
Yeah. So one, I think that number one, it's about building relationships first, right? I mean, who are they? What are they interested in? What do they do? What are they struggling with? What are they passionate about? Right. Is number one. But number two, I would say if you're the community builder, you have to have an idea around, what type of community need is there, right? Like, I would say that right now in the world, something like an AI, a community focused on AI ethics and quality at the implementation level
so
is
needed.
probably one of the most important things you can do right now. Like, this is going to impact the full globe, and this is incredibly important. So number one, there was the opportunity to create something like this. There was also, not only the opportunity, but there were years of experience and understanding that there were these gaps between regulators and big tech and the reality of the practitioners on the ground, right?
Yep.
So not just seeing an opportunity, but knowing that there's a true problem that's led to that opportunity underneath it. Then it's about, identifying again who gets it, right?
Yeah.
Like, once you start forming these relationships, who understands this problem, or where do they understand their problem from? Again, maybe they do have their lenses on and they're thinking about them. Where do you have people who see the problem from their angle, who are really ready to invest and work together and get it done? Right. And back to the politics, right? A lot of people will go, yeah, but then they won't ever do anything, right?
Yeah. Well, how do you deal with that? Because that must happen all the time. People want to tell you positive things and get you off the call, and then
yeah, it's I hate that. By the way, I
oh yeah, it's a nightmare.
It's one of the things that it
Weaponized
was shocking.
politeness.
It is. Well, it is, but it's not. I actually don't find it to be polite, because to me, I find it to be it's not truthful.
Yeah.
Is that polite? No. I'd rather someone just tell me, I don't have an interest in this right now because I don't get it, or I don't understand, and blah blah blah. And I'd be like, okay, I'll go try another door. I'll be back, but I'm gonna go try something else.
But at least I got a straight answer. I know where I stand. Yeah.
Exactly. But for me, what I do is, it goes back to this community building. I tend to leverage energy and motion of the energy to collapse down passive aggressive behavior. So as I just mentioned, at Microsoft came. Microsoft's a very different company than it was when I worked there under Satyan's rule. But when I was there, it was still the Ballmer years. And Microsoft was known for their culture. And if anyone's ever seen any of the org diagrams of some of the big tech companies, Microsoft's is all guns from all the orgs pointing at each other.
Yeah.
The reality is it was much worse than that, because what you had is that within organizations, everybody was pointing guns at each other as well. Yeah. And part of that is because of the culture of the company. It was, when Bill Gates founded it, he founded a culture, he created a culture that was very much based on competition.
Sure.
So even if you were in the same team, or if you were in sister teams, often people were competing with each other.
Yeah.
And at a company that encouraged innovation with their own tech internally, right? You didn't have to standardize internally. It became kind of a nightmare from a data perspective. But what I did is that, number one, it was funny when I first moved here, because again, Microsoft, I'm originally from Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, people tell you what they think. They think what they say, and they say what they think. Okay. And that's just how it is. When I moved to Seattle, it took me a while to figure out that people were saying one thing, but they weren't meaning it. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't mean it. And Microsoft was really bad about that. That goes back to that guns, and it's all passive aggressive and everything else. Yeah. So back to building communities and finding value and et cetera, what I started to learn to do is how to network really, really well. Okay. Because that goes to community building as well. Figuring out who influences who.
Yeah.
Okay, what their strategies were, how I had an angle to amplify that strategy in some way or another, and then leveraging other influencers to influence that person if they weren't ready to hear the message or the partner yet.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Is that
again,
something you internalized or externalized? So is that something you just had as a thought process in your head, or did you ever put pen to paper? This is what the org structure is. This is who influences who.
I do
Is it-
both. Oh,
Yeah.
I do both. Actually, I have in fact, I use mind map all the time, and
Yeah.
I tend to build organizational mind maps related to people and strategies and what I'm doing and how it aligns. So I do both. In fact, in my teams, when I manage teams, I'm kind of odd how I manage a team. I tend to hire people that are multifunctional. Like, in other words, I love product managers, number one, but I hire product managers to do program, product, customer relationship all together, so that like they're the single point. And then I plug and play them based on their strengths and personality types, based on who the customer is and what we need. So like someone might have deep finance, background, or someone may have the personality that's going to fit well with this particular person or whatever. So again, I place strengths off of each other. And so back to these mind maps, I tend to even put them in things like, TFS and VSO. When we're doing project assignments, we're literally like, okay, this should go to blah, 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 based on this amplification. They led this initiative that has a downstream impact here, plus this personality trait. Bring blah, blah, blah in, so that we can have them sitting with them once a month to just do like touch customer engagement components and relationship building. Like, I amplify those things. And I do the same things when, like, with the association. So I spend time with people. I'm trying to figure out how to get them, involved. I'm trying to see where they have a strength. I am trying to understand what value it's bringing to them, so that I can keep rolling out more and more aspects. And again, I'm trying to make it effective and impactful. And to me, that requires understanding the people.
No, it really does. But I think a lot of people might do it internally, but not make it explicit externally. I think there's a lot of power in making it external, because in reality, relationships and interpersonal dynamics are really complicated.
They are, and you have to be intentional, right?
Yeah,
like,
you have to be intentional.
Look at it this way too. You don't have time to sit down with every single person, right?
No.
Like, I don't have time to meet with every single person that wants to meet with me. And so, I try to make times for the people who are bold enough to, right? I'll be honest, some people, may not be, or may not feel comfortable reaching out to someone like me, because you'd be like, oh, they won't talk to me, or, oh, blah, blah, blah. So if they're bold enough to, then I'll make the time, just because, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, fair play.
But on top of that, what I tend to do is I tend to take my culture, right? Like, this is about culture building. Okay. I tend to take my culture, and then I empower others with my culture. And even if they don't intuitively get the culture, and it's not part of them and their fabric, out of box, like, just constantly reinforcing it in regards to like how we work, how we're working as a team, how we're tackling problems, how we're approaching this. Like, you start to change people's fabrics, right? Especially when they start to see the value that it brings in regards to driving the change, right? Or driving and getting to that impact. And then people start adopting it. And so, you have to be intentional. Back to the people, right? Like, if you don't see, if you see someone who would be very malicious to what you're trying to do, right? Like, I'm very intentional about, will I even get them involved? Or if they really, really want to, and I want to give them a chance or a shot, like, okay, here's these other skills that they have, and I'm going to really kind of lock them into this type of a container in a box until I understand the impact, right? Because I want some type of change. So it's even a way to manage like bad traits.
How much do you role play in those situations? So you talk about, on one level, you're trying to give people wins along the way, to hook them in and to give them a reason to believe. Are you thinking explicitly about what those wins might be ahead of time, or?
Yeah, no, I'm a very, very strategic person. Okay.
It sounds
So
like
again,
it.
I like to say that I am a strategic tactician,
Yeah.
because what I am is someone, I know exactly what could be. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, like with the association, I have probably a 5, 6 year multi-year plan that could lead to a unicorn, not kidding.
Yeah.
And far outside of what we're currently doing under the association umbrella, that could be impactful across the globe on many, many fronts. And I'm like, there's no reason that we can't do it.
Yeah.
And I literally have probably 30 different people playing 30 different angles and roles right now that are, again, all different trigger points to keep moving it along the pace. Okay. With probably 3 or 4 plans on each like functional
So
angle
variance, you're hedging
on
your bets
something
around how
different.
things might evolve and change along the way.
Exactly. So my point is that, like, it's all these things are very intentional. Like, you can't, I don't think most people can, or I think a lot of people, it'd be hard to build a community if you don't understand where you're wanting to go.
Yeah.
Right. Or what's the point? And often for communities, you have to keep having a reason for that community to exist. So it's not about a single point in time or a single problem. It's about, a set of moving components.
Yeah. The right now is really
keeping,
important, right? Because you want to hook people in, and you need to create value for them at the end of the day.
well, all of it's about value, but
Yeah.
my point is that value is not a one and done when it comes to communities, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
think that
constant.
value is about amplifying continuous types of value, right? Yes.
What would your recommendation be to somebody who wants to think more strategically about how to approach community building?
I would say the best thing to do is, number one, identify again where you have an opportunity to build a community and on what topic. Number two, know your landscape. Like, who's critical? Like, I'll give you an example right now. I just launched, anyone who follows me on LinkedIn, we just kicked off our data AI trust advisory council. Okay. Because we're launching basically our ethics and policy efforts that are focused on those technical implementation standards. And so we meet bi-weekly as a team with that council. Okay. So bi-weekly, because everyone's really busy. We do a lot of ad hoc, but every week we're making progress. And every week we're making progress because, number one, we've kind of aligned to a mission. We've spent time getting to know each other and what our strengths are. So in other words, like, I've got people who are deep regulator, government affairs people. I've got deep AI people. I've got deep privacy people. We kind of know our strengths. But now we're getting to a point where it's like, okay, this week, hopefully, we're announcing our first topic working group, and it's going to be on healthcare. It hasn't been announced, but it's going to be on healthcare and AI in healthcare. So one of the things that I'm going to be having the team do is, I'm like, we need to go through our networks. I literally did a new, export of my LinkedIn, connections just last night.
Okay.
Because I need to go through, I need to figure out everyone that I know who works in healthcare.
Yep.
And I don't care if they're a C-suite or on the board or if they're an IC. I'm going to reach out to all of them.
Yeah, sure.
And say, here's what we're doing. Because again, you can watch this one in motion. We will start with lower level individual types of people who are like, yes, this is a problem. Yes, I want to be involved. And we'll build up a working group. And then we will get to an industry subcommittee that's focused on healthcare, that will have executives, by building the motion at the lower level. Okay. And once we get the lower level moving, the word of mouth will get out to executives as far as the numbers or the types of outputs we're putting, or the exact conversations that we're having. And that will bring industry groups, that will bring some of the big executives, and then that's how it works. And so that's how I tend to build community. So I'm like, today, I'm going to be going through my networks. I'm going to tell everyone else on our team to do it. And we're going to make a list. Who do we think the top 10 companies are that we need to have representation from around the globe on this particular topic? Okay, who are they?
Yeah.
Who has a contact at those companies?
Yeah, what's our in at the end of the day?
Yeah, how do we get in? Okay, or who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, what I mean? Who's going to reach out to them? Is it me? Is it you? Is it like who's taking the accountability to go and move it? Okay, who's doing the PR about the progress on it? So again, we're dividing and conquering. We're building energy. We're leveraging networks. We're
the bigger
doing
your network, the bigger your extended network as well, I guess.
That's right.
So
and we're in a top down and bottom up in between approach where we can bounce either way. Right. And that's to me community building in motion.
No, it's amazing. I mean, everything you've spoken about today has been super insightful for me and hopefully for everyone who's going to watch this video.
Maybe I need to write a book on this. See, to me, this
you do need to write a book on this. I think there's so much to write about. I'm thinking a lot about your message around servant leadership. I think especially around how it's really important to effectively know and understand what people are trying to achieve and not see individuals as means to your ends, because it's really easy if you're working in an organization to relate with another department around, well, I need to get this over the line, and to do that I need this person to play ball, and then treat that relationship in a very transactional way. And same thing's true in communities as well, and it's deadly. It's kind of toxic.
It's very toxic. I actually think to me it's incredibly what do you want to say? It hinders companies so much. And I don't understand. I actually I truly I don't understand it because I'm like, it's you doing that means that you are bringing frustration back into your own home after work in regards to that you needed to act that way. Or you were frustrated that someone else did that to you. And then and it's just like people again, we're all on the same ship. You may not like someone, but you have to work with someone, and again, their success is your success. And if people looked at it that way, it'd be a much better world.
It would be a way better world.
It'd be a much better working environment. And it's not hard to do that. It depends on the culture.
Yeah.
And I was at a conference back in, I think this was November, and I was speaking at a women and media, cable and telecom conference. And there was another speaker who was the last speaker of the day. And he was coming up and talking about culture. And something he said really resonated with me. And he was like, you ask people what culture is, ask them what their definition of culture is. And he's like, a lot of people ramble off some generic thing. And he goes, what culture is basically what's the most extreme thing that someone can do and you accept it. And this goes back to what I'm saying, right? Like I have culture in my teams and they're based in my values. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's based in my values. I treat people as I want to be treated. I believe in empowerment. I believe we're all one team and we need to work together. And the more we do that, the more successful we are and the more successful the company is. And I tend to build my relationships like that as well. And yes, there are definitely people who will hate me because of that, right? Because they're coming about it from their own point of view, or people or especially in data, people are afraid that they'll lose power or that they'll, whatever it is. And so I'm always trying to find ways to trade certain things, or what they get is that value, right? What's the value? There's got to be a value, right? Or people won't trade. But if you accept that type of passive aggressive behavior, or you accept that teams are not working together effectively, then that's the culture that you have set. And sadly, that's the culture at most places. And
it's the rule, not
Yeah, it's the rule, not the exception. And to me, that comes down to the leaders, right? They will say that's not the culture that they want. I mean, just like you will hear, at every company how data driven they want to be, and but to be data driven, you have to remove walls. That's what it means. Okay. It's what it means. And you have to understand the business and business fluency and how processes, amplify on top of each other. And I have to understand what your strategies are and what matters to you. And you need to understand what matters to me. Okay. So in other words, most companies, that's kind of lip service because they're not willing to do the cultural changes that actually move the mile. And you can see this. There's stats on this. In fact, I think it's, though there's a lot of them, both from like McKinsey. I know there's some with Forrester. I know there's some with Gartner, and they're all about the same statistics, that about 90% of efforts to scale data across an enterprise fail. 90%.
90%.
And out of that figure, like it's almost 90, I think it's 89% of people, these are executives who gave 89% of executives blamed the failure on culture.
Yeah.
And so again, if you're an executive at a company, do you know how much you're costing the company due to ineffectiveness or, or poor operations or just poor return on investment in regards to your infrastructure and your teams? If there's a 90% failure rate because you're not changing the culture, and then add that to AI. What is AI? It's another data aspect. If there's a 90% failure in data, there's a 90% plus failure in AI. Okay. So everyone who's running the AI race, if you're not focusing on your culture, you're not going to meet
think about moving parts. To negotiate data is one challenge. Negotiating AI is so many more moving parts.
And it's even more risky, right? There's whole new risk landscapes. So again, if you don't understand what's in your data or how it's used or how it flows or how it needs to be handled or where you have business readiness or data readiness or not, like, then you're setting yourself out for major failure and a lot of cost and a lot of frustration. And again, a lot of it boils down to the culture, 100% on the culture. So again, it's really this is a skill set. Maybe I should write a book because it's a skill set that a lot of executives do not have. And you have to have a backbone to say that's not acceptable and that's not the behaviors and the culture that we're going to have.
I think I don't think there are explicit frameworks that people can leverage in order to promote a more healthy culture. But I think that's probably another discussion for another time. And I think there's probably a book in there as well.
I think that I need to get to writing. So
okay.
Which is why we originally connected, right?
It is why we originally connected. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for your time today. I mean, I've loved chatting to you and I found it super insightful. We have to do this again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad to share some of that experience, etc. And thank you for having me.